You and May told me what y'all was up to. I didn't want to believe it. And just what makes you think colored people need your help? Why you care, Minnie? Maybe you just want to get Aibileen in trouble.
No. I want to show her perspective, so people might understand what it's like from your side.
Well, it's a real 4th of July picnic. It's what we dream of doing all weekend long. Get back into their house, polish the silver. And we just love not making minimum wage or getting the Social Security. And how we love they cheering when they little. And then they turn out just like they mamas.
The Help is a 2011 film written and directed by Tate Taylor, based on the New York Times bestselling novel by Catherine Stockett with the same name. It follows the lives of 3 women in 1960s Mississippi. Skeeter, played by Emma Stone, is a recent college graduate who's an inspiring writer. Aibileen, played by Viola Davis, and Minnie, played by Octavia Spencer, are black maids who work for affluent white families. Upon its release, this film received critical acclaim with 4 Academy Award nominations and a win for Best Supporting Actress for Octavia Spencer's role as Minnie. The film also received several nods from BAFTA, the Golden Globes, and the Critics' Choice. But many publications criticized the film upon its release. Robert Ebert called it a safe film about a volatile subject. The New York Times critic, Mayola Dargis, stated that the director, every so often, let the roar of the outside world still in like thunder. But Mr. Taylor makes sure it doesn't rattle the china or your soul. This is because of the main perspective of Skeeter, the film's protagonist, who is an affluent young white woman. The original book author, Stockett, in an interview with the New York Times, stated that she added Skeeter's character to give a white perspective to this historical story. Skeeter is framed as a good white person. She is a smart, ambitious college graduate who rejects her mother's desire for her to be married. She is empathetic towards the black domestic workers and even obsesses over the memory of her family's domestic maid, Constantine. She is the perfect model feminist, but Skeeter represents the dominant voice of feminism and female independence that has always been white. This prevalence of white feminism creates an environment where films like The Help are marketable and even celebrated in their limited, dehumanizing image of the black domestic worker. The problem with The Help is that it frames the issues of black domestic workers like Aibileen and Minnie and the pressures that Skeeter face as having equal detriment. Most of the impactful civil rights moments are seen through Skeeter's eyes instead of the eyes of the film's black community. An example is Skeeter watching Medgar Evers' speech with unnamed black domestic workers positioned in the background. Another example is Skeeter reading the Life article on Medgar Evers' murder. Jane Gaines, professor of film and media studies at Columbia, in her academic essay, White Privilege in Looking Relations, Race and Gender in Feminist Film Theory, states that whiteness in film is positioned as the default, and how other narratives, like those of black women, are positioned as other. Skeeter is the white female narrative at the center of this film. Minnie and Aibileen's stories are the narratives that are other. Skeeter's fight against her mother and her journey as an aspiring writer is a story that the audience gets to see from the beginning to the end. But the ending of Minnie's domestic abuse from her husband is mentioned in the ending voiceover.
That table of food gave Minnie the strength she needed. She took her babies out from under Leroy and never went back.
And Aibileen's grief over her son is glossed over in the film.
My boy Trelaw always said we gonna have a writer in the family one day. I guess it's gonna be me.
These are the stories that the audience does not get to fully see. There are simply ways for the white women in the film, Skeeter in the case of Aibileen, and Celia in the case of Minnie, to connect with the black women in the film. This exchange between these women goes as far to signal to the audience that Skeeter and Celia are examples of good white women who can be trusted. These diverse images of white women allow them to be human and complex. Healy, the villain in the film, played by Jessica Chastain, is a housewife that is cunning, smart, and obsessive. She is often seen in the film in positions of power. She not only has this power over the black maids and her white housewife friends, but she also has this power over her husband. This is a position of power that is rarely seen in films that depict the 1960s housewife. Another portrayal is of Celia, played by Bryce Dallas Howard. She is presented as a curvy, ditty, struggling housewife with an unusual heart of gold. But slowly she is given a complexity that deepens her character. She is from a poor background and has married rich. She grapples with the expectation of being a housewife and a mother in light of a miscarriage, and she also is seen as an outcast by the housewives in her neighborhood. Her journey of becoming a better housewife and her friendship with many portray her as a success story in treating the black maids with respect. In contrast, Black women's stories in the film are rooted in fear and consequences. Black women are put in boundaries where their complexity is not shown. Only through recognizable images of pain.
It is absolutely at the bottom of...
Fix me a sandwich, Abilene.
Or through images of servitude, the audience is able to hear their voice.
What you done put up in this? She said, my shit.
In the case of Minnie, she is the typical Mammy character. She is loud, sassy, and emotional.
With where you were born.
Belzona, Mississippi, on my great auntie's sofa. Next, I put the green beans in first. Then I get on the pork chops so I can get started on that cornbread.
She is a perfect match to the overweight, dark-skinned caretaker image of the traditional Mammy figure.
Eat my shit.
Nikki Maelia, professor of history at UConn, in her book Clinging to Mammy, states that the Mammy figure was created to prove that enslaved people appeared faithful and caring, not because they had to be or were violently compelled to be, but their fidelity was heartfelt and indicative of their love for and dependence on their owners. This was pushed in the 20th century through the historical slavery fantasies of the white middle class that was upheld in the domestic work of black women. She also states that the domestic labor of black women was a necessity because white self-worth, gender, and class identities depended on it.
Let's give a nice round of applause for the help.
In this film, Minnie serves as a comic image that upholds the notion that love and dependence can truly grow from a black domestic and white housewife relationship. The heartfelt exchange between Celia and Minnie is a relationship rooted in the racist agenda that black servitude was not as painful or dangerous.
I wanted to say thank you.
So, I ain't losing my job.
You got a job here for the rest of your life. If you want it.
Lastly, there is the problematic image of the magical Negro. This is seen in the character of Constantine, who is played by Cicely Tyson. It is described as a saintly African-American character who acts as a mentor to a questing white hero, who seems to be disconnected from the community that he or she adores so much. Skeeter is the hero, and the magic Negro is her former caretaker. The scenes that depict Constantine are usually in mystical settings where she appears out of nowhere. She holds this enchanting quality and mostly comes around when Skeeter needs guidance to move along her journey.
Mama was third runner-up in the Miss South Carolina pageant.
I wish you quit feeling sorry for yourself. Now that's ugly. Ugly is something that goes up inside you. It's mean and hurtful, like them boys. Now, you're not one of them, is you? But I didn't think so, huh?
Throughout the film, Constantine is absent outside of the confines of tragedy and comedy. The black women in this film mostly live with absent or unfinished stories. Through Skeeter's dominant storyline, despite Abilene's prominent voiceover, we are given a surface-level historical story that privileges its white characters and fails to flesh out the black women in the film. By the end, we are given a story that centers around a white narrative and does not fully tell the story of those who are named in the title.